Just one more second. Whoops. To make sure we're online. Just one more second. Yeah, we are online. Okay, great. We're getting ready to start. Hold on a second. Let's see. I think we're ready. Yeah, we are ready. Okay. Let me just check the settings on this. Microphone, all right. And one more thing. Yes. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, never mind. Okay, everybody. So we're going to get started. Welcome to the Caitanya Caritamrta class. And, well, here's something we can chant right now. Before class, hold on 1 second. Okay. Shri Guru Charana Padma Palabhakati Sadma Padanu Saladhanamate Jakara Vasade Bhai He Baba Tori Adyari Krishna Prapti Hoy Padmabhakya Chitere Huriyaya Aranakore Maneyasa Shri Guru Chavande Rate Ese Uttamagate Te Prasade Pure Sarva Dilo ye, Yamadan me Prabhu say, Yakudan dilo ye, Vijan me Prabhu say, Vivekyan Ride Prakasita, Fremavatiyo, Iteya Vidya Vinasayate, Vedikaya Jara Jarita. Adamajanara Bandhu Kanna Lokera Jivana Lokanath Lokera Jivana Prabhu Koradaya Amore Padachaya Prabhu Koradaya Amore Padachaya Ebeas Kusutri Bhuvana Das Kusutri Bhavana Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Pada Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Namaho Vishnu Prataya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Sesha Shunyavani Shakchani Zatarane Joya Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvatacharya Alstuteta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalanad Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikapatnath Shaim Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuranam Ki Jai Jagannatha Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasidevi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premalanda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is to the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Trinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarani. So, Om Ganata Mirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshudam Niditam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvena Mahai. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. We have to be convinced that we were blinded in the darkness of ignorance. And our spiritual master saved us. So, we will go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta, which we haven't done for a day or two. And so we're still in the Madhya Lila, chapter 4. We're just finishing up that chapter today with text 198. And we're going to finish the chapter and then go on to chapter 5, which comes after chapter 4. So chapter 4 is primarily about Madhavendra Puri's devotional service. So let's go to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, let me just move this a little bit so we have enough room for everything. That's very good. So we're going to start with text 198, and we've heard about the devotional service of Madhavendra Puri, the spiritual master of Ishwar Puri, is the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Nityananda heard the story from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the whole story was told in Remuna, where the deity of Shirachura Gopinath is. So let's finish up the chapter. Hey Shlokapadite Prabhu Haila Murchite Premeti Vishvasa Premeti Vivasa Hanya Padila Bhumite. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited this verse, he immediately fell to the ground unconscious. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. Because this was a verse spoken by Madhavendra Puri that's being referred to here, while he was leaving this world, and he was repeating what was spoken by Srimati Radharani, feeling separation from Krishna. Aste vyaste kole kare nila nityananda krandana kariyatabe ute gorachandra. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell to the ground in ecstatic love, Lord Nityananda quickly took him on his lap, crying. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then got up again. Premonmada hoiluhuti itiuti daya hunkara kariye hase kande nache gaya. Just make sure the volume is all right here. Sometimes the audio settings get off a little bit. Okay, volume up a little bit. Oh, a little bit up. That should be better. Okay, translation. Exhibiting ecstatic emotions, the Lord began to run here and there, making resounding noises. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried, and sometimes he danced and sang. Ai Dina, Bole Bara Bara, Kante Navi Sarevani, Netre Ashudara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not recite the whole verse. He simply said, Ai Dina, repeatedly. Thus he could not speak, and profuse tears were in his eyes. Kampa Sveda Pulakashru Stamba Vaivarnya Nirveda Vishada Jadya Garva Harshadainya. Trembling, perspiration, jubilant tears, shock, Fading of the bodily luster, disappointment, moroseness, loss of memory, pride, joy, and humility were all visible in Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's body. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Jadya is explained as loss of memory brought about by severe shock due to separation from the beloved. In that state of mind, one loses all concern for loss or gain, hearing and seeing, as well as all other considerations. This marks the preliminary appearance of illusion. Now, this illusion is called divyonmada, or transcendental craziness. And this is Yogamaya, under the jurisdiction of Yogamaya, not Mahamaya that we're all in illusion under. So these are, well, symptoms of Mahabhava, which we cannot experience. And sometimes some of these symptoms are mentioned as Vyabhachari Bhava symptoms. But to the fullest extent that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is experiencing them, they can only be experienced by Srimati Radharani and some of her associates. But only to the fullest extent by Srimati Radharani. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and he is experiencing them. Eish loke ugadila premera kapata gopinatha sevagadeke prabhura prema nata. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and when it was exhibited, all the servants of Gopinath, that's the Shirachara Gopinath, saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance in ecstasy. Lokera sangata deki prabhurabhaya haila takurera bogatsari arati bajila. When many people crowded around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he regained his external senses. In the meantime, the offering to the deity had been finished, and there was a resounding arati performance. Thakure Shayana Karana Pujari Haila Bhagira Prabhura Gyani Dila Prasada Barakshira. When the deities were laid down to rest, the priest came out of the temple and offered all 12 pots of sweet rice to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shira Deki Mahaprabhura Ananda Bhadila Bhaktagane Akaurayate Panchakshiralaya. When all the pots of sweet rice remnants left by Gopinath were placed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very pleased. In order to feed the devotees, he accepted 5 of them. Satakshira Pujarike Bahudya Dila Panchakshira Panchajane Vantiya Kaila. The 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priest. Then the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed among the 5 devotees, and they ate the prasadam. Gopinatha Rupe Yari Kariyachena Bhojana Bhakti Dekaila Prasada Bhakshana. Being identical with the Gopinath deity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already tasted and eaten the pots of sweet rice, yet just to manifest devotional service, he again ate the pots of sweet rice as a devotee. Nama Sankirtane Seratri Gunaila Mangala Harati Deki Prabhati Chalila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night at the temple engaged in congregational chanting. In the morning, after seeing the Mangala Arati performance, he departed. Why is Mangala Arati called the Mangala Arati? Because Mangala means what? Auspicious. Oh, wow. So by going to the Mangala Arati, is the worship ceremony, then your whole day becomes auspicious. And if you don't go to the Mangala Arati, then you are amangala. And your day is amangala. What does that mean? Inauspicious, because you put an A in front of the word, like you have Vaishnava and Avaishnava. It means the opposite. So Vaishnava, Avaishnava means one who's not a Vaishnava. And Vaishnava means one who is a Vaishnava, or devotee of Krishna. So Mangala means auspicious. Amangala means inauspicious. Sorry about that one. Gopala Gopinatha Puri Goshanira Guna Bhakta Sange Sri Mukhe Prabhu Koela Ashvadana. In this way, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu personally tasted with his own mouth the transcendental qualities of Gopalaji, Gopinatha, and Sri Madhavendra Puri. Eta akyane kahila donhara mahima prabhura bhakta vatsalya ara bhakta prema simha. Thus I have described both the transcendental glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection for his devotees and the highest limit of ecstatic love of God. Whew, such a wonderful chapter. Shraddha yukta hunnahiha shuneye jana Shri Krishna charane se pai prema dona. One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And of course, that is what we call a Shruti Pala. Shruti Pala, as we've explained many times before, comes at the end of many of the chapters in Vaishnava literature and other literatures too, Vedic literatures, that it gives you a benediction for having heard. Shruti means to hear. Pala means fruit. So it's the fruit of hearing. So if one hears this particular chapter attentively with faith and devotion, then he gets love of Godhead. So any of you who have been hearing this chapter along with us, I bless you, Prabhupada blesses you, Lord Chaitanya blesses you, Madhavendra Puri blesses you with pure love of Godhead. Of course, attention and faith. Shivrupa Raghunatha Padehara Hasha Caitanya Caritamrta Kahi Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunatha, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, following in their footsteps. And thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Madhya Lila, 4th chapter, describing Sri Madhavendra Puri's devotional service. What a wonderful chapter. And this is another deity story in chapter 5, which I promised I would tell you. And there's a summary of that in the beginning, and later on there's a full elaboration. This is an amazing story. And also hearing this increases one's faith in the deity. So chapter 5 is entitled The Activities of Sakshi Gopala. Now Sakshi means witness, and Gopala means Krishna, as a coward boy. Gopala. You can look at it as Go means cows, and Pala basically means the friend of the cows. A name for Krishna. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the following summary of the 5th chapter in his Amrita Prabha Bhasha. After passing through Yajapura, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reached the town of Kataka. Katak. And there went to see the temple of Sakshi Gopal. While there, he heard the story of Sakshi Gopal from the mouth of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Now, this temple is roughly halfway between Bhubaneswara and Jagannath Puri. So, those of you who take that route will stop by this temple. It's a very old temple. The deities are beautiful. Actually, I have pictures of the deity. Oh, I should show the pictures. Oh my God, I should show you the pictures. Anyway, someone should remind me, and I'd have to look for them right now, but I do have pictures of Sakshi Gopal, which you're not allowed to take, but somehow or other I always find devotees to sneak in the temples and take these pictures. Once upon a time, there were two brahmanas, one elderly and the other young, who were inhabitants of a place known as Vijayanagara. After touring many places of pilgrimage, the two brahmanas finally reached Vrindavana. The elderly brahmana was very satisfied with the service of the young brahman, and he wanted to offer him his youngest daughter in marriage. The young brahmana received the promise of the elder before the Gopal deity of Vrindavan. Thus, the Gopal deity acted as a witness. When the two brahmanas returned to Vijayanagara, the younger brahmana raised the question of his marriage, but the elderly brahmana, due to obligations to his friends and his wife, answered that he could not remember his promise. Because of this, the younger brahmana returned to Vrindavan and narrated the whole story to Gopalji. Thus, Gopalji, being obliged by the young man's devotional service, accompanied him to southern India. Gopalji followed the younger brahman, who could hear the tinkling sound of Gopalji's ankle bells. When all the respectable gentlemen of Vijayanagara were assembled, Gopalji testified to the promise of the elderly brahmana. Thus the marriage was performed. Later, the king of that country constructed a fine temple for Gopal. Afterwards, King Purushottama Deva of Orissa was insulted by the king of Vijayanagara, who refused to give him his daughter in marriage and called him a sweeper of Lord Jagannath. With the help of Lord Jagannath, King Purushottama Deva fought the king of Vijayanagara and defeated him. Thus he took charge of both the king's daughter and his kingdom as well. At that time, Gopalji, being very much obligated by the devotional service of King Purushottama Deva, was also brought to the town of Kataka. After hearing this narration, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu visited the temple of Gopal in great ecstasy of love of God. From Kataka, he went to Bhuvaneshwar and saw the temple of Lord Shiva. In this way, he gradually arrived at Kamalapura, and on the banks of the Bharagi River, he came to the temple of Lord Shiva, where he entrusted his sannyas staff to Nityananda Prabhu. However, Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff into 3 pieces and threw it into the Bharagi River. At a place known as Ataranala, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry at not getting his staff back. Thus he left the company of Nityananda Prabhu and went alone to see the Jagannath temple. This is an amazing chapter in the Caitanya Caritamrta. Okay, let's start it. Padam chalam ya pratima sarupo ramanya devo hi shatagam yam desham yagya viprakrted puteham tang sakshi gopala maham natosmi. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of God, Brahmanya Deva, means the Lord of the Brahmins, who appeared as Sakshi Gopal to benefit a Brahmin. For 100 days he traveled throughout the country walking on his own legs. Thus his activities are wonderful. Says the deity, he walked for 100 days to Vijayanagara. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chalite Chalite Lila Yajapura Grama Varaha Deki Karila Pranama. Walking and walking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his party finally arrived in Yajapur on the river Vaitarani. There he saw the temple of Varaha Deva and offered obeisances unto him. Of course, Varaha Deva is the boar incarnation of the Lord, who appeared to pick up the earth planet from the nether regions of the universe as it was submerged. And he also came to kill the demon Haranyaksha. And that story is there in the Bhagavatam. And if you're interested, read the Bhagavatam. Nritra Gita Kaila Preme Bahuta Stavana Yajapure Seiratri Karilayapana. In the temple of Varahadeva, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing and offered prayers. He passed that night in the temple. Katake Aila Shakshi Gopala Dekite Gopala Sandarya Deki Huila Anandate. Afterwards, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the town of Kataka to see the temple of the witness Gopal. Jai. When he saw the deity of Gopala, Lord Chaitanya was very much pleased by his beauty. Prema Veshe Nrityagita Kaila Katakshana Avishtahana Kaila Gopala Stavana. While there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing for some time, and being overwhelmed, he offered many prayers to Gopala. Now, you'll notice that wherever Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes, he's chanting and dancing. He's not just like sitting there like a lump on the log like many devotees or most devotees do. He's dancing. We are meant to dance as we're chanting, not simply like sit and just be morose and depressed. Say Ratri Tahan Rahi Bhakta Gana Sanghe Gopale Rapuvrakata Shune Bahu Range. That night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in the temple of Gopala along with the devotees, with all the devotees. He heard the narration of the witness Gopal with great pleasure. Nityananda Goswami Yabe Tirtha Brahmila Sakshi Gopala Dekhi Bare Kataka Haila. Previously, when Nityananda Prabhu had toured all over India to see different places of pilgrimage, he also had come to see Sakshi Gopala at Kataka. Sakshi Gopalera Katashuni Loka Mukhe Se Kataka Hina Prabhu Shune Mahasukhe. At that time, Nityananda Prabhu had heard the story of Sakshi Gopala from the townspeople. He now recited this again, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration with great pleasure. So Prabhupada explains, the Sakshi Gopala temple is situated between the Kurara Road railway station and the Jagannath Puri station. The deity is not presently situated in Kataka, but when Nityananda Prabhu traveled there, the deity was present. Kataka is a town in Orissa situated on the Mahanadi River. When Sakshi Gopal was brought from Vijayanagara in southern India, he stayed for some time at Kataka. Thereafter, he was situated for some time in the Jagannath temple. Wow. It seems that in the temple of Jagannath there was some disagreement between Jagannath and Sakshi Gopal, a disagreement called Prema Kalaha, a quarrel of love, because they were in different moods. In order to settle this love quarrel, the king of Orissa, sometimes two deities of the Lord have a little disturbance between each other and they have to go to separate temples. The king of Orissa, because they're in a different mood, like Prabhupada explained, that when you install the deity or you have a deity of Lord Nrsingadev, you never put him on the same altar with Radha and Krishna, or with Lord Jagannath, or with Gaur Nitai. He has to have his own temple. Remember that. His own temple. Just like in Mayapur, he has his own temple, and he's going to have his own temple within the temple of the Vedic planetarium. The king of Orissa constructed a village about 11 miles from Jagannath Puri. This village is called Sachavadi, and Gopal is stationed there. Thereafter, a new temple was constructed. Now there is the Sakshi Gopal station, and people go to Sachavadi to see the witness Gopal. And actually, the place is called Sakshi Gopal. And I went there to see Sakshi Gopal, and they wouldn't let me in the temple. As I mentioned many times before, I came with two other devotees, but they were from India. So one devotee went to the door of the temple and he introduced himself. He said, I want to go see the deity because I am a Brahmin from Bengal. And they said, please come in. And then the next devotee, I am a Brahmin from Gujarat. They said, please come in. And I went to the door. I'm a Brahmin from New York. And they said, get out of here. And I said, if you don't let me in, Krishna's going to punish you. And immediately a thunderbolt hit about 100 feet from the door of the temple. Crash. And I said, okay, I'm giving you a warning. Better let me in. Still didn't let me in. And then, you better let me in. And another thunderbolt hit like 30 feet away. And I said, isn't that enough for you? And they still wouldn't let me in. So even Krishna couldn't get me in the temple. Somehow or other. Purve Vijayanagarera Dvita Ramana Tirtha Kariba Tunhe Karila Gamana. Formerly at Vijayanagara in South India, there were two brahmanas who made a long tour, here's the story, to see different places of pilgrimage. Gaya, Varanasi, Prayaga, Sakala Kriya, Mathura Teha Aila, Dunhe Anandata Hanya. First of all, they visited Gaya, then Kashi, then Prayaga. Finally, with great pleasure, they came to Mathura, which is near Vrindavan. Vana Yatraya Vana Deki, Deke Govardhana, Dvarashavana Deki She Gela Vrindavana. After reaching Mathura, they started visiting the different forests of Vrindavan and came to Govardhan Hill. They visited all 12 forests, vanas, and at last came to the town of Vrindavana. So the 5 forests situated on the eastern side of the river Yamuna are Bhadra, Bilva, Loha, Bandira, and Mahavana. The 7 forests situated on the western side of the Yamuna are Madhu, like Madhuvan, Talavan, Kamudavan, Uhulavan, Kamyavan, Kandiravan, and Vrindavana. After visiting, because Van means forest, after visiting all these forests, these pilgrims went to a place known as Panchakroshi Vrindavana. That's the village. Out of the 12 forests, the Vrindavan forest extended from the town of Vrindavana up to Nandagram and Varshana, a distance of 32 miles, within which the Panchakroshi Vrindavana town is situated. So the Panchakroshi is actually the town of Vrindavan, and Vrindavana itself refers to the entire forest of Vrindavan. And sometimes when you hear the word Vrindavana, it refers to all the 12 forests of Vrindavan, depending on the context. Anyway, they were visiting all the places there. Well, let me just speak a little bit more. So you have the eastern side of the Yamuna River on the western side. So Krishna's really, really early pastimes took place on the eastern side of the Yamuna. And of course, that's where Gokul is situated, where Krishna had his appearance, or Krishna, depending on which acharya you follow, Krishna was transferred from Mathura to Gokul. Okay? And that's also where Radharani appeared close by. Anyway, and so many of the early pastimes, such as Brahmananda Ghat, which is where Krishna ate the dirt and his mother accused him and she saw all the universes within his mouth. So, keep on going. Vrindavane Govindastane Mahadivalaya Se Mandire Gopalera Mahaseva Hoya, in the village of Panchakroshi Vrindavana. At the site where the Govinda temple is now situated, there was a great temple where gorgeous worship of Gopala was performed. Excuse me. Keshitirtha Kariya Hritariki Kaila Snana Shri Gopala Deki Tahan Karila Vishrama. After taking baths at different bathing places along the river Yamuna, such as the Keshigata and Kaliyagata, the pilgrims visited the temple of Gopal. Afterwards, they took rest in that temple. Gopala Sandarya Dunharamana Nila Huri Sukapanya Rahitahan Dina Dui Chare. The beauty of the Gopal deity stole away their minds, and feeling great happiness, they remained there for 2 or 4 days. Dvi Vipra Madhya Eka Vipra Rida Praya Ara Vipra Yuvatandra Karena Sahaya. Of the two brahmanas one of the two brahmanas was an old man, and the other was young. The young man was assisting the old one. Chota Vipra Kari Sada Tanhara Sevana Tanhara Sivaya Viprera Tushtahaila Mana. Indeed, the young brahmana was always rendered service to the older one, and the old man, being very satisfied with his service, was pleased with him. Vipra Bale Tumi Morabahu Seva Kaila Sahaya Hanamore Tirtha Karaila. The older man told the younger, "You have rendered various types of service to me. You've assisted me in traveling to all these places of pilgrimage. Putreo pitari aiche nakari sevana tumara prasadayami na pailama shama. Even my own son does not render such service. By your mercy, I did not become fatigued while on this tour. Kritadnata Horyatumaya na kaila samana otoiva tumaya ami diva kanyadhana." This is funny. Anyway, it's an inside joke with me. "If I did not show you any respect, I would be ungrateful. Therefore, I promise to give you my daughter in charity." So that's called kanyadana. So for those who don't understand what the word kanyadana means, kanya is like young girl, and dana means donation or charity. So kanyadana, it's actually part of the marriage ceremony where the parents of the girl give the girl to the boy and the boy's family. It's called Kanya Dana. It's a very important part of the ceremony. Sometimes they have it as a separate ceremony 1 or 2 days earlier or a week earlier. It's called Kanya Dana, where you give the Kanya, young girl. Of course, the girl has to agree and the boy has to agree. It's not that the girl is just some object. "We're going to give you this computer." "Oh, you don't want the computer? You can have the girl." Chota Vipra Kahi Shuna Vipra Mahashaya Asambhavakaha Kene Yenahi Hoya. The younger Brahmana replied, "My dear sir, please hear me. You are saying something very unusual. Such a thing never happens." So such a thing he's referring to is not the marriage and the kanyadana and all those other things like that. Such a thing is that in those days, and also today in certain communities, they're very, very, very caste conscious. So even though both are brahmanas, one may be considered a higher brahmana caste than a lower brahmana caste. There are many subcastes in India. There's subcastes and subcastes of subcastes, and so generally people marry within their same caste. And in many cases it turns out to be an absolute disaster. I have a friend who was forced to marry a girl. He's from Gujarat. He was forced to marry a girl in the same caste, and he didn't like her. But his parents just had the marriage and everything, and then marriage lasted 2 days or something like that. And everybody was angry with him for giving up the girl, but it was just a forced marriage. You can't have such things. People should be allowed to marry whoever they want. And another thing is, if two people fall in love, then get out of the way. As Chanakya Pandit very nicely says, anyone who comes between a man and his wife, or a wife and his man, her man, not his man, wife and her man, or between a girl and a boy, or people in love, they become the enemy. So you just Get out of the way, Prabhu, because it has a life of its own. People fall in love. That's it. You can't do anything. Even God can't do anything. So, that's why the younger Brahmana said such a thing never happens. Mahakulina tumi vijadanari pravina ami akulina haradana vijahina. Now, one thing we should understand is that when you're in the Western world, sometimes you get these parents or people from India or some other traditional culture, and they come to America, or they come to New Zealand, or they come to Australia, or they come to Europe, and they expect their kids to follow the same procedures that they had when they were in their native countries, like in India. And they look at their kids. The kids look racially the same as them. But I got news for all you parents. Your kids are just as westernized as anybody else with any other color of skin. It doesn't matter. They're in the West, they're westernized, and they're going to act like everyone else in the culture that they're in right now, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, there ain't nothing you can do about it, and you'll just make an enemy of your kids. Remember that. That's a fact, and I've seen it happen again and again and again. So, the younger Brahmin is saying, you are a most aristocratic family man, well educated and very rich. I am not at all aristocratic, and I am without a decent education and have no wealth. So Prabhupada explains, due to pious activities, one can be enriched by 4 opulences. One may obtain birth in an aristocratic family, become highly educated, become very beautiful, or get a great quantity of riches. These are symptoms of pious activities performed in one's past life. In India, it is still current for an aristocratic family never to consider marriage with a common family. Though the caste may be the same, to maintain the aristocracy, such marriages are rejected. No poor man will dare marry the daughter of a rich man. Because of this, when the elderly Brahmin offered the younger Brahmin his daughter, the young Brahmin did not believe that it would be possible to marry her. Therefore, he asked the elderly Brahmin why he was proposing something unprecedented, asambhava. It was unheard of for an aristocratic person to offer his daughter to a person who is both uneducated and poor. And here's the word kanyadana again. Kanyadana patra. Interesting. Amina hahi tumara Krishna pritye kari tumara seva vyavahara. Sir, I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. Both Brahmanas were pure Vaishnavas. The younger man took special care of the older one simply to please Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11:19-21, Krishna says, Mad Bhakta Puja Vyadika. It is better to render service to my devotee. Thus, according to the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, it is better to be a servant of the servant of God. That's Gopi Bharta Padakamala Dasa Dasa Dasanudasa. That's from the Caitanya Charitamrta, Madhya Lila 13th chapter, text 80, which means one should be a servant of the Lord who maintains the Gopis and Vrindavan. One should not try to serve Krishna directly. A pure Vaishnava serves a servant of Krishna and identifies himself as a servant of Krishna. This is pleasing to Lord Krishna. Srila Narottama Das Thakur confirms this philosophy, Charya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Pehet Kiba. Unless one serves a liberated Vaishnava, he cannot attain liberation by directly serving Krishna. He can't directly serve Krishna. He must serve the servant of Krishna. That is our philosophy. So, anyway, we went up to text 23. And so, tomorrow we will continue with this exciting story. So let's stop sharing, and then we will allow some of you to ask questions. Hold on a second. Okay. Who amongst you has a question? Who amongst you wants to
Hi
marry
Krishna
a
Gurudev.
poor Brahmin? All right, what's the question, Ninja Kunja Vasini?
When you're hearing these pastimes, how to meditate on them?
How to meditate on them? Very good question. The way to meditate on them is that Krishna is real. Krishna can be approached by his devotee. Krishna will reciprocate with his devotee. And that's the pastime. Both the Brahmanas are pure devotees, and Krishna is reciprocating. That's the reason for telling the story, not to encourage people to get married. It's to encourage people. I mean, I gave some comments about living in the Western world, which has nothing to do with the story, but actually applicable in many people's lives who move from India to the Western world, and they expect their children to be just as submissive as they were to their parents in India. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. When you go to Lanka, you become Ravan. When you go to the Western world, you become a Westerner. When in Rome, do as the Romans do, and when in the West, do as the Westerners do. And actually, all of India is becoming westernized now, too. If you go to Delhi, or you go to Mumbai especially, you'll find that people in one sense are actually more westernized than the Western world is. So the moral of the story is Krishna is there in the deity. You should go to the deity and promise as we'll hear in the next few days when we read this story, that you should develop a personal relationship with the deities. As we've mentioned before in one of our classes, that the first time I visited a temple, it was in Boston, Massachusetts, a full temple with Radha and Krishna. I had visited centers before that. It was Boston, Massachusetts, 1968 or 69 or something like that. And I found that the devotees were one by one during a special ceremony they had every week coming up to the deity and talking to the deity and revealing to the deity what they had done the previous week, even though Krishna already knew what they had done the previous week, and begging the deity for, making promises to the deity, begging the deity for benedictions. Everybody had a personal relationship with the deities. It was a very, very, very special ceremony, and I just wish we could do it here in New Goloka. It should be done everywhere, because people should see the deities are not something you decorate. It's not like a fancy Christmas tree. The deities are not a fancy Christmas tree. They are persons who you have a relationship with, you can talk with, you can communicate with. They'll bless you or they'll chastise you. I mean, it's really an intimate back and forth relationship you can have with the deities. And that's the purpose of this story. So someone else want to ask a question?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Gurudev, Madhav.
Madhava.
Hare
Okay,
Krishna, Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. So my question is that while you were reading before in the summary, the Sakshi Gopal, what I had heard in the past, that once this devotee who he was walking behind, he looks back and then he will stop, he will not move from there. And
yes,
from description, moved several Jagannath temples, so many places. So how is that?
How
Looks
is
like
that?
he moved. Yeah, how he seems to be moved several places in spite of being, what I heard, that once he does the witness, he once
Oh,
the
I see.
Brahman
Yeah,
said
okay.
that once you look back, I'm not going to move out of that place. So
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, the story is that the deity walked to Vijayanagara, but when he was moved to other places, he didn't walk there. He was transported by the devotees.
okay.
So his walking was only to the outskirts of Vijayanagar from where he was in Vrindavan. Actually, he was where, yeah, where Rupa Goswami's temple was before. Oh, of course, later on. I mean, this was several centuries that this story occurred before Rupa Goswami constructed his temple, the Radha Govinda temple. So he was in that same section of Panchakrosha Vrindavana. And he walked to just outside the outskirts, or on the outskirts, of Vijayanagara. And then wherever he was placed later on, he was actually moved by the devotees rather than walking.
Oh,
Okay?
okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, there was only one trip he had to make on his own feet. the, the other ones, devotees gave him a ride. His beautiful deity. Shakshi Gopal is he's a beautiful, tall deity. Oh, someone should remind me I should show pictures of him. Maybe I should look it up on the internet. I know I have pictures, really beautiful pictures of Shakshi Gopal. Images of Sakshi Gopal. Let's see. There he is. Okay. Hold on a second. Yeah, I have a beautiful picture here I can show you of Shakshi Gopal. 1 second. All right, hold on a second. Oh, these other pictures are just in the way. Anyway, you get an idea. Hold on a second. They're giving. Here he is. Okay. Okay, this is a better picture anyway. 1 second. Wow, what a beautiful picture of Shakshi Gopal. Okay, so I am going to share the screen with all of you, and you will all see Shakshi Gopal. Because I'm not the only devotee who arranged a camera to be snuck in to the temple. Other devotees are just as tricky as I am. So here's Shakshi Gopal. You see?
Yeah.
Everybody can see. Beautiful deity. Very, very beautiful deity. And this is the deity that walked all the way across India.
So what is
Amazing.
the other deity on the other side? What is
In the other pictures, I didn't see that deity. I would assume it's a gopi who's fanning Shakshi Gopal. I can't tell right now. I would just be
Oh,
speculating. I would just be speculating at this particular point. But this is Shakshi Gopal. I've seen
yeah.
his picture before, and this is a beauty. He's a beautiful deity that was situated near the Radha Govinda temple, and he walked all the way across India. Actually, there's other pictures of him too. Hold on a second. Let me show you some other pictures of Shakshi Gopal. It's nice to show pictures to the devotees. Wait 1 second. Here's a picture. Oh. Give me 1 second. Bigger. Here's a picture of the outside of the temple. This is a picture of the outside of the temple. This is where they wouldn't let me in. And the thunderbolt hit. This is the outside of the Shakshi Gopal temple. You can actually almost see the deities right from the doorway because there's a clear shot from the doorway to the deity. But it's very dark inside, so I couldn't see the deity. So that's another picture. And I have some really ecstatic pictures of the deities that were taken by a friend of mine that I just don't know where they are right now. Hold on a second. Let me find another picture of Shakshi Gopal for you, just so you can see. There's one more picture of the deity. right, give me a second. Okay. Anyway, let me page through some pictures of the temple and the deity so you can get some more pictures. In these temples in Orissa, there's actually usually a lion at the gate of the temple. Usually they have these really specific Orissan lions carved, not real lions, carved. So here, let's do a share screen again. So here's some pictures. This is the main entrance of the temple again. Whoops, sorry. See the lions in front of the temple? The typical Orissan temple. And here's Sakshi Gopal again. Try to make him a little bit bigger. It's a little blurry. You see, very beautiful deity. And anyway, those are all the pictures we're going to show right now. Jai Radhika said that once I spoke in Hindi and allowed me in, but then their intention was to sell me things and get money. I had a good darshan and left without purchasing anything. All right. So it's very nice. So who else has a question?
I got somebody who asked me a question to ask you. Here
All
it
right.
is. So there's a person who lives alone, doesn't have any devotee association, and they're asking if it's still beneficial for them to go to Mangalarti, wake up every day by themselves and just sing to Prabhupada.
Yes. Oh, of course. It's actually very beneficial. But if you want to go to Mangalarti, you can go to Mangalarti online in various temples in the world. There's this one website called Mayapur TV, mayapur.tv. And Mayapur TV has many temples, including Nugaloka, where we are right now, online. And you can actually see and hear the Mangalarti and associate with the devotees. Yes, mayapur.tv. Mayapur.tv. You're welcome to go on that website and go to Mangalarti. Yes, it's very beneficial. You're associating with the devotees virtually, which is non-different from associating with the devotees physically. So there's a great benefit to doing that. Good question. Everyone should try to go to Mangalarti. All right. Anyone else have any questions?
I have a question, Guru Maharaj, if nobody has it.
Yes.
Guru Maharaj,
Okay.
I was thinking, when we walk into the temple room, and like in Sydney temple, we have a Srila Prabhupada as soon as we walk in the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, we have deities. How
Yeah.
do we pay our obeisances? What is our etiquette? I'm so stupid. I don't even know, like, how do you do what?
What is your etiquette? Pay obeisances to Prabhupada. I don't understand what's the. Oh, so
Some
you
people say on the
so you don't
right-hand
want to
side.
you don't want to put your feet towards the deities. Is that the question?
No, like I heard somebody saying that when you're paying obeisances, the deity should be on your left-hand side. First, you do like whom do you
Deity
pay
should be on the left-hand side, and Prabhupada should be on your left-hand side.
So let's say I'm going to the
Or you
altar.
you can pay obeisances to the deities straight on, or to Prabhupada straight on. You know, many people do it like that. Either way is all right.
Yeah, like on the altar, there are so many deities. Like we have, like, so whom do we pay obeisance on the altar first? Like Radha Krishna
The
or
ones
all
on the left first, the deity on the left first, and then you go. If you have 3 sets of deities, then you pay obeisances to the deities on the left. Then you move to the deities in the middle. Then you move to the deities on the right. If you just have one altar, you just pay one set of obeisances to everybody. It's not that you have to pay different obeisances to everybody on the same altar. Then you'd be paying obeisances 10 times on the same altar if you have different sets of deities. But usually the obeisances are offered to one's spiritual master. That's the etiquette. And when you say the obeisances, you say, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani. And then to one's spiritual master, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati, my Guru Iti Namani. You know, that's the method.
I pay first obeisances to you, then I pay to Srila Prabhupada. But you are telling me I have to pay first to Srila Prabhupada, then I should pay to you.
Either way, whatever. As long as you're paying obeisances to Prabhupada, that's the main thing. You have to pay obeisances to Prabhupada, and then by the mercy of Prabhupada, Guru Parampara, and our spiritual master, we can actually approach the deities. Here's a question. Is it okay to attend Mangalarti U.S. time? Well, you have to wake up pretty early in the morning to do that, wouldn't you? Because Mangalarti in India is like 10 hours later. So that means the Mangalarti in India, let's see, going back 10 hours, at night, in the middle of the night. 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Yeah, you know, roughly, it's 1 hour from now. That's right. It's 1 hour from now, so that's pretty easy. You can go to Mangalarti at 7 o'clock at night. You got it made. Most of us devotees have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to Mangalarti. But you can have Mangalarti at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Great. I never thought of it that way. So this way, that's great. So this way I don't have to wake up early anymore in the morning. I can just go to Mangalarti in Mayapur.
I'm such a rascal, Gurudev. I'm just finding shortcuts.
I know, yeah. You can go to Mangalarti in Mayapur. Wow. Just think how fortunate you are, Rishikesh. You know, Mangalarti in Mayapur, and then you can sleep all day because, let's see, it's 7:30 in the morning, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Mayapur. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 8, 9, 10, 11. By 11:30 or 12, you can go to sleep and sleep the rest of the day. And just wake up in time for 8 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening Mangalarti. You are so fortunate. I am envious of you. So, but for those who are in Europe, it means the middle of the night. So they can't do that. But if you're in Australia and New Zealand, that means the middle of the day. So you are so fortunate. Yes, forget about getting up early anymore. No need. No. Mangalarti, wherever you are, Brahma Muhurta starts at about 4:30 in the morning. So that's when you should be chanting and dancing, not at middle of the night or 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night. People have this tendency, especially those of you from India, you have the tendency to stay up late at night and wake up late in the morning. I've been to so many programs in people's houses, and the program just gets started at 8 o'clock at night. Especially in Fiji, it's like that. In Fiji, people are wild. They start the program, especially in a place called Lambasa or Nandi, they start the program at 8 o'clock at night, and it really gets going by 10 or 11. And then you have a big feast at midnight. And it's wild. Prabhupada's program is early to bed, early to rise, makes a devotee, Hare Krishna, wealthy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. Okay, we have to end now, so thank you very much for joining us. We'll see everybody tomorrow, same time, same station. We're going to continue with the story of Sakshi Gopal, which is an amazing story. So please join us tomorrow evening. All glory.